Hi, I'm Lee from Appy Parking. Drivers are currently lost when it comes to trying to find parking spaces. So how do we expect autonomous vehicles and driverless cars to find a parking space? We've built what we believe is the first connected car smart city platform, directly connecting smart cities and autonomous vehicles to a parking bay. So a smart city can manage that parking bay like a commodity, an asset, the restrictions, its charges, its location, etc. The vehicle can then search for a parking bay appropriate to its passenger. It can navigate to that bay and then pay for parking once it leaves that bay. And one small example of where this is working at the moment, so we have a product called One Click working in Westminster, where we've got fleet vehicles actually paying for the minutes and the seconds they use a parking bay rather than block booking time and paying for that in advance. And those vehicles are being charged when the vehicle physically moves out of the bay. Just one small way we're connecting vehicles to smart cities. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's crack on. Good evening. My name is David Greenberg. I'm from Eave. We've developed the world's first intelligent ear defenders. They're for use in heavy industry, and they do three main things. They provide adaptive hearing protection, communication in noise, and real-time noise mapping and dosimetry. Most recently, in terms of a very recent update, on Monday we started a pilot with Transport for London. So they're using them for... So we've got about 8 of these pilots ongoing, and we're really keen to speak to some of the companies here to get more going. We're in the process of scaling up our manufacturing and production, and the product is all about improving safety as well as productivity and efficiency in the heavy industry environment. So real-time monitoring and mapping is our key innovation, and I look forward to speaking to you afterwards.
Great,
thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. There we go. Good afternoon, my name's Neil Heron. I was originally going to present one of Grid's Smarter City Solutions, which was the intelligent management of inner city curb space. But seeing that things have happened today, that I thought I'll change to show you Assist Me, which is the assistance for a disabled traveller on the rail network and the anticipation of imminent arrival of a disabled person at a venue, just to make sure that the service provider is ready and able to meet the needs of a disabled person. We've completed a successful pilot which was funded by RSSB and Innovate UK on the East Coast Main Line with Grand Central, and we're hopefully looking to roll this out across the UK, fully supported by the Department for Transport and all of the disabled user groups. So keep it short and sweet, and thank you.
Hello, we are Go2U. We provide software and hardware solutions to connect business partners who own charging stations and the EV drivers who can charge their cars for free while using the partner services. So, EV drivers easily overcome the driving range anxiety with our mobile application because we allow not only to find the closest charging spot, but to book the charging station, plus book and pay for the services at the charging spot. This can be a table at the restaurant, a hotel room, or relaxing spa services, all in one app. Our business partners benefit from individual back office, which we offer them not to sell the electricity, which is a poor monetization of the parking spot, but to sell directly to the EV drivers their services and products. Working with us, they cut the customer acquisition costs and boost the customer satisfaction, loyalty, and trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonia?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Sonia. I'm the head of partnerships at oBike UK. We are a dockless bike sharing company. We launched in the UK in July, and our aim is to make cycling more accessible. Part of that is providing a proposition that's really strong, that means cycling is affordable and convenient, but on the other side of it, it has to be viable for the existing transport network and at no hindrance. We know that, we've learned our lessons there. And so part of that is using our technology, using GPS and geofencing to ensure that we can add value to current transport networks, extending the reach of them, but also making sure that we have data and insights that means that we can play a part in future transport planning. I look forward to speaking to you about dockless bikes, e-bikes, telematics between bicycles and vehicles, and anything on the kind of cycling agenda. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Hello, I'm Peter Dorr from Cambridge Electric Transport. I'm a revolutionary. I do things radical and big. The invention and revolution, you need to change things by an order of magnitude. What we have here is a single-person car that is a tenth the price of a Leaf, an electric car, tenth the price, 2,000 something pounds. It's built as a safety cell. It is safer than a cycle. It's probably safer than a car. It is certainly safer for the pedestrian. It increases the capacity of the road by an order of magnitude. You can put 4 of these where there's a car. You can put 6 of these where there's a car park. It only uses 200 watts of power at full speed. We can put 100 kilowatts of solar panel on it so that you don't even have to charge it. It doesn't have any impact. You can build roads for this by rolling out lino because it is so light at 75 kilograms. You can make a tunnel using 1.5-meter sewage pipes. This is totally revolutionary. This changes urban transport. We believe there will be millions of these worldwide. Wherever there is a bicycle, these will replace it. These will replace cars. It takes you from A to B, unlike public transport. The only thing that restricts us as far as speed is the regulation. If you pedal these, rather than use the electric motor, a fit person can get up to 70 miles an hour. A very fit person. I'm 63 years old. I can get it up to 28 miles an hour on a good surface, flat. This is revolution. This is coming to London and to the rest of the world because we can make these for around about, in volume, for under £1,000 each. They're as cheap as a bicycle.
Thank you, Peter.
Hi everyone, Bola, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Predina Technologies. So most people believe that accidents are caused by bad driving. We disagree. We believe that as well as that, 70% of major accidents are caused by good drivers driving under difficult conditions. And using that insight is what we apply into our product. We are building the world's first dynamic risk map for accidents, and based predominantly on context. In terms of what we've achieved so far, we've successfully completed a pilot with one of the largest industrial gas companies in the world that travels over 1 billion miles globally, and we've validated that our tech works in the real world. We're currently in this next stage of scaling and rolling out that technology across the UK and rolling out to other countries. Obviously, our technology will have long-term impacts for autonomous vehicles, insurance, smart cities, where the driver will be completely eliminated from the picture, and it will be based on context. So today, we are interested in engaging with smart cities, and we're also raising capital as well, so we'll be interested to speak into investors. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tasha Afanasieva, and I'm the founder of Blubel, a bicycle bell that shows you the way. So cycling is a really great way to travel. The only thing is if you actually don't know the way, it can be incredibly stressful. And this is the problem that Blubel aims to tackle. Very simply, it works. You tap in the destination of the Blubel app and press go. And this connects to the device and shows you using very simple gestures and audio signals 10x10 navigation. And so basically you get there and it's a lot simpler than trying to figure it out, getting the phone out and all this kind of stuff. And the other really key thing about Blubel is that it is a bicycle belt. And so every time our users ring Blubel, we can actually detect this. And at the end of the journey, the app prompts users to add information. Was it pedestrian crossing? Was there a pothole? Was there a lorry? And so we can crowdsource this information and actually figure out a lot of very interesting insights about cyclist behavior. So what we're aiming to do with this data is share with local authorities, potentially with people who are developing sort of other road users and other institutions. We launched the product, so for those who have access to our website. We have received a lot of support from the Department of Transport, from London, and the European Space Agency. And we're now looking for partners to expand our data offering and to expand our community as well. Thank you very much.
Is Emsol here? Emsol? Great. I thought I put up the problem slide that we're solving. My name is Freddie Colbert, and this is one of my new companies, and I'm partnered with Springfield, extra vehicle and heavy trophy. So we've got an awesome team, and we want to solve big problems along with the market quality and air quality. We know air quality is one of the segments in the air. The question is, how do we do that? At the moment, what's interesting is the number of road traffic accidents, or the amount of air quality early deaths is 22 times higher than road traffic accidents. So the investments we prevention. Now that growth of applications or opportunities is really huge. But the trouble is you need a really smart solution. So what we're doing is we know air quality is a problem, and we've built, I think, a really awesome business model that really engages corporates. So big corporates can really start to get involved and start setting the culture about air quality. So your supply chain, you can start saying, as a supply chain, I want to make sure you're living and breathing the culture of air quality when you're delivering goods to me. And we have a platform to be able to manage your supply chain to make sure they deliver to the quality standards that you have. I'll give you an example. If you're a school receiving supplies of goods, do you want that supplier parking the truck outside the school during playtime? If you could say, my air quality threshold levels is at 0 at playtime, that means I'll monitor you and make sure you don't deliver that time. If you do, we'll get you to sort of improve your behavior going forward and start to be smarter with the use of your data. So Emsol has got a really important thing to achieve. We do need big corporates to help us on it. And I think we can change quite a lot of behavior just through decent business engagement, not government policy. Thank you. Thank you, Freddie.
Hello, my name is Wahid. I'm a bit apart from the actual situation because I'm not a startup. Ferry was kind enough to squeeze me in. I'm from EIT Digital HQ in Brussels, and I came in this morning to meet you guys. EIT Digital, as such, has a mission on innovation and education on digital skills, and I'm representing professional school. Our audience at the professional school, EIT Digital, is the workforce in Europe, where we train managers to upscale their digital skills or introduce them, really, depending on their level. You will understand why I wanted to see you guys, because we are working very closely with research organizations in Europe to put in place these programs we offer to the likes of you, I guess. We have a portfolio of smart city programs. This one is the one I would like to talk further on, and the latest one and the most important one. But I will very briefly go through. There is a whole range of digital smart city environment programs which we offer to the marketplace. And we're doing a constant research to be really up to date. And for next year, there will be, again, the INRIA one. The organizations on the right are probably the best research organizations we have in Europe. They're our partners. Why am I here? Because our latest program is this program, and we've just been last week at the Smart City Expo in Barcelona, and we offered this one and we got amazingly good feedback for that one. And I would like you to have a look at this. Twice, right?
Just once forward.
Once forward.
Smart cities, smart homes, smart buildings, smart transportation, sustainable city, green city, connected city, inclusive city. You've probably heard all these terms and expressions before, but do you really know what they mean? How is a smart city different from others? We qualify a smart city as one that offers new services and innovative management tools which use information and communication technologies such as IoT, mobile and cloud computing, social networking, and data analytics. The services provided are dedicated to supporting environmental and social sustainability for a fast-growing urban population. The scope of smart city services and tools is broad, ranging from efficient street lighting and waste management to traffic and transportation. All these new services and tools rely on the sensing, collection, storage, and processing of heterogeneous data. As a result, if a city really wants to be smart, it needs to face up to a set of both technical and societal challenges. Indeed, smart cities require hardware and software infrastructures, together with privacy and security tools, able to engage people and encourage them to take part in the evolution of their city. Are you a professional involved in smart city projects, an engineer or a project leader in the digital field? Would you like to know more about the underlying network and software infrastructures that make up urban systems promoting public participation? Do you work for a city government or a public institution that is interested in understanding the challenges of using digital technologies in urban environments? Sign up for this course on technological challenges of participatory smart cities, and you will find all the answers to your questions.
There you go, that's what we do. Thanks so much for your patience and your time for this. What we do is exactly this, and if you would like to have more information on that, take a picture of that, come to see me. I'm more than happy to give you further information for that. Thanks very much for this, and all the best. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Wahid. I think we have some information down here along with some other information. We're just opening up the shutters to get in a ramp, so excuse the background noise. I'd like to hand over to Ben, who looks after our venture finance here. He'll be running the last session. Over to you, Ben.
Lovely, thanks. It's great to see all these people out. Super. So my name's Ben. Can you hear me okay? Up the volume a bit? Can you hear me now? Oh, that's better. My name is Ben McClure, and what I do is I lead the venture finance support activities here in London for EIT Digital. I work with a team of 7 other venture finance specialists across Europe, and what we do is we help scale-up stage digital businesses raise the venture capital they need to grow and expand across Europe and globally. I'm thrilled to be here. There's a big change that's going on, so we're seeing deep changes in decentralization, in digitization, in innovation, in speed, and it's shaping up and creating all kinds of exciting opportunities. And the real vanguard of the change and the opportunities that's coming, in our view, from new ventures and entrepreneurs. We believe in entrepreneurial ventures, in entrepreneurship, and in smart, ambitious entrepreneurs. And we believe that they're the ones that are changing the face of industries. They're the ones in the vanguard, and we're here to support them. And nowhere, arguably, are the changes upending industries more than in transportation and mobility. as the 10 people who got up here, they gave us 1-minute presentations, and in each of them they were giving us a brand new business model for how people should be moving, communicating, and getting from A to B. So big changes, striking, dramatic, and the next 20 years are going to be super exciting, and we're here to play a role in that. And we've got some more companies coming up on stage to present. Fergie has assembled 5, and you're going to be hearing from each of them. They're going to be giving short pitches, not as short as the ones you just had, but short and concise and to the point. And we're going to be having Lola Technologies up, Immense.ai, Passenger, Vivacity Labs, and Better Points. In simplest term, EIT Digital Accelerator, we're a connector. What we do is we're leveraging our people, our resources all across Europe, and putting that into charge for the companies we work for. We have business developers, so it's people like Fergie and James here and Michaeli and their colleagues all across Europe. And their role at EIT Digital is to help digital scale-ups grow their businesses into new European markets. So our business developers can open doors to new customers and partners. And working beside them are people like me, the venture finance team. And our job is to leverage what we believe is probably one of the best venture capital networks available in Europe. So if you're a digital venture, you've got a proven business model, you've got revenues, and you think there are really big opportunities in Europe, and you need to raise venture capital, please come to see us, because we're here to help you. We think that venture capital plays an immensely important social role. Venture capital is really the fuel that digital scale-ups need to grow, scale, become sustainable, and really fully reach their potential. So what we do is we help you connect with VCs, the people with the money and willing to take on the risk, and who can make your goals and ambitions possible. So to try and help make that connection tonight, we've brought together a group of new and old friends in the UK venture capital community. So tonight I'm going to invite up Phil Edmondson-Jones from Beringea Capital. Come on up, Phil. And I'm going to let each of them give a little brief introduction. We've got Chris Haley, who's managing partner from O1 Ventures. And we have Jonathan Carrier from RocketSpace. Lovely. So together with me, we're going to form the panel, and we're going to hear from the startups, and we're going to give some questions and feedback, and hopefully we're going to add a little value tonight and help the companies on stage take it to the next stage. So we'll welcome them up. Do you want to invite them up?
Great, yeah, there's some mics down here. Lola, if you'd like to come up.
Good afternoon. My name's Charlie Cadbury from Lola. And we've heard a lot this afternoon all about intelligent mobility and how that's going to be delivered. But what we've heard not so much about is how that feels to the customer. And so what we've done is we've created Dazzle, which is a platform to try and make the customer experience as delightful as it can possibly be moving forward into the future. To show you exactly how that might feel, I'd like you to transport yourself into your living room. And this is how it might feel for you. Alexa, open London Midland.
London Midland, how may I assist?
Is my train on time?
Your train from Hereford to Birmingham New Street is on time at 18:48. Is there anything else I can help you with?
How long is my journey?
The journey from Hereford to Birmingham New Street takes approximately 1 hour and 3 minutes. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Yeah, I want to book a ticket from Birmingham New Street to London.
Of course.
Alexa, open London Midland.
London Midland. How may I assist?
I'd like to book a ticket from Birmingham New Street to London Euston tomorrow.
At what time would you like to leave?
About 10 a.m.
There are multiple trains from Birmingham New Street to London Euston at 9:14, 9:33, 9:54, 10:14, 10:33 and 10:54. Would you like me to send you a booking link?
Yes, please.
I have sent the booking link to your phone. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Can I take my bike on that train?
As your journey is off-peak, you may take your bike on the train with no problem. Is there anything else I can help you with?
No, thank you. So there was a link sent to my phone which I could then book through. My phone's currently being used as a mobile hotspot to drive this device here. So I'm now out on the road and something unexpected happens. I'm on my bike and I get a flat tire. This conversation is continued via a messenger, so I can then kind of engage with the service and I can say, right, I'm going to be a bit late, how am I then going to complete the journey? So it tells me that I complete the next train is a little bit later, and it tells me my ticket's still valid. I then make it onto the train, and while I'm on the train, I want to know how to kind of engage with the services that are being provisioned by the train, so I can work out how to jump onto the Wi-Fi, and that's then delivered directly to me. So this is the way that intelligent mobility would feel from the customer's perspective. So who are we and why should we be able to deliver this to you? The one extra thing that we can deliver is this then delivers you a single customer view. So from the transport provider's perspective, they can then see exactly who's asking for what, where, and when through what different channels. So that if any requests then do come into any central contact center, you can see the entire journey with that customer. You can then have a kind of holistic view and see exactly what channels are working for you to engage with your customer. The vision is so that you can then in the future talk to people as a universe of one rather than cohorts and deliver that personalized experience. Us as Lola Tech, we are a 8-year-old business. There's about 90 of us. We've come from the airline industry. We have been working with the most profitable airline in the States for the last 8 years or so. And then a couple of years ago, we started investing a lot of R&D time and energy into conversation and produced Dazzle, this platform which is driving all of this. It's recently received a few different awards in both Las Vegas last month and Birmingham. So why is now the most important time that we should be looking at this? So the conversation is the way that all of the big players think that we are going to be engaging with our digital products and services. By 2020, 55% of US homes will have a smart speaker. This is the way that customers are going to be told that they should deal with what's happening in their digital world. And at the moment, in 2017, about 20% of all Google searches are being done by voice, and that's expected to rise by 50% by 2020. So now is the time. So what we see is, this is a change from engaging with your transport providers through a graphical user interface, through kind of apps or websites, where you see one picture, whether it's you, me, or the million other people who might go and visit that page. And that picture's trying to be a lot of things to a lot of different people. And the way that we look at this is that a picture may tell 1,000 words, but a conversation gives you the answer. Thank you very much.
Questions, guys?
So just start off by saying that was a great demo. Often when you do the demos with the conversational interfaces, they go terribly, so congratulations on that to start off with.
Thank you.
The main question I had was on your sort of why now slide. Yep. There was a great sort of panel I went to yesterday evening, which was talking about conversational interfaces and actually saying that they think at the moment being too early in it could almost be as bad as being too late. So I'll just ask you to sort of expand on why you think now definitely is the right time for this. Do you not risk being too early and burning through all your money before conversational commerce becomes a big thing?
It's a very good point. So living through the kind of advent of apps, so a lot of the team kind of have been through the year of the app, right? And a lot of brands thought that was the way that everything was going to go. And the people that did really, really well during the rise of apps, the people who found a problem and were able to solve that specific problem with a very well executed app. and that didn't tarnish any kind of brand reputation, and actually gave them massive kind of leverage on their bang for buck from a publicity perspective. So that's the way that we'd start now, by using conversations through very kind of narrow domains, so answering very specific questions, and we're just trying to figure out exactly where those are at the moment, and we're looking for the help of anyone in the room to do that. Because if you can then do that, and then do that really, really, really well, use that as a wonderful foundation to then kind of grow against. So now's the time, because you need to start exploring and learning how you're going to build a foundation for your brand to communicate that to the world, rather than waiting until you've got a fully autonomous kind of all-knowing AI.
Great presentation. Again, you're right; those often can go pretty badly. So it seems like you're selling this to the train operator, obviously, to integrate into their app, which we as the end user then use. And from the demo anyway, it seems like what you've done is you've taken a lot of the features that I already have through the GUI or through the app or whatever, and you've just made them into voice. In a lot of ways, AI and voice and chatbot is quite a commoditized thing. It's not that difficult to replicate. Are you planning on taking any of the data that you're collecting through those questions or whatever, and add additional features to me as a passenger that the train operator can then provide in your roadmap?
I think what's really, really hard to get across, especially with these demos with these very kind of crowd-pleasing devices, is that the intelligence that we have within our platform is the ability to take the whole kind of service provision from the transport company and then allow that to be interrogated through natural language. It doesn't matter then where the endpoint is. So it doesn't matter whether you're using one of these smart speakers, whether you're using Facebook Messenger, or whether you're using SMS, WhatsApp, or Siri, or Google Assistant. It doesn't matter how you're asking the conversation, you're still able to go and get that direct communication channel to that provider. Okay, so we're providing, and so we basically want to be able to deliver all of those different options to the transport provider, so that the customer can choose how they want to talk to that transport provider to get all that information back. And then, of course, over time, we're adding other ancillary benefits. So the business case is very much right. This allows the transport provider to sell other things to the customer, delivering them incremental revenue, but also by delivering this more convenient and appropriate communication channel, it reduces calls into the contact center, which is an immediate cost saving. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. Good.
Journeys are inherently multimodal, so when you deliver this service as a B2B solution to one provider, how is that relationship going to determine someone's successful journey that will take on multiple modes? Because often things go wrong, things aren't linear, and often it's the beautiful seams where things go wrong, where actually a brand can take advantage. So how are you addressing that in the inherent nature of somebody's journey, and ultimately how that determines that relationship with a multitude of brands, not just one provider?
Back to the question we had kind of 3 questions ago about how do you build this brilliantly. So right now we understand that is a problem and it's a stretch goal, and we're definitely considering ways to approach that. But in the short kind of medium term, work out how we deliver something kind of well packaged brilliantly, and then we'll work towards delivering against that problem.
And then the second question, if I may, B2B obviously difficult to scale, because you have to put a lot of legwork in to try and then engage with a number of corporate partners that you've got to convince, plus then the usual bureaucracy, selling, purchasing agreements, meeting, 60-day terms and everything else that goes with it. How on earth are you going to scale this business into something that also delivers growth for you?
So I think that you start off with working, so if you take a step back, we've come from the airline world, and then this Dazzle products initially started off working within hotels, and 5 months ago it's pointed towards hotels. We were pulled into rail with an accelerator program run by London Midland, and has kind of pointed our direction, our kind of focus in that direction. We're trying to learn as much as we can about the industry, hence thank you very much for having us here today. And so the more that we can learn and engage about how we can deliver against those challenges. This is the learning phase, and then we'll work out how we deliver direct to customers later.
Okay. Related question: you think the timing's right for this product to enter the market? What do you want to do over the next 12 months? What are the 2 or 3 key milestones or achievements you want to?
Yeah, we've had some really good exposure, and we've had an amazing amount of kind of pull from the market. So we're engaged with a number of talks, and if it's not you, then we'd love to talk to you as well. And over the next 12 months, we'd love to engage with those, and move, back to some earlier points, not into proof of concept stage, but to roll out something that's going to be meaningful for their service delivery. In order to do that, we need to raise some capital to put a dedicated team more around this specific market sector, which we're a new entrant into.
Thanks. Anything else? Good. Super presentation. And I was sweating there too. I wasn't sure if it was going to go, but it was so smooth.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So up next is Immense.ai. And we have Robin.
Yes.
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you.
And the clicker. Right, hello everybody. My name's Robin North. I'm here with a company called Immense Simulations. The future's changing, particularly in mobility. We've heard a lot about that this afternoon. We've brought together a set of different technologies to deliver predictive capability that helps us answer some of those difficult questions about strategic investments in transport, and then how we deliver these new services and make money out of them. So what we do is we build large-scale simulations of people, places, and mobility. So that's agent-based models, you, me, everybody else in here, in a pseudo-population moving through the world, and a future world, and a different future world. They're very detailed, they live in the cloud, they're persistent, and they're predictive. They allow you to answer lots of what-if questions. So the problem we're trying to solve is that the people on the, which way we're looking at it, left of that diagram are all operating services, and they have issues around delivery to customers, costs, assets, efficiency. And there are big markets there in developing techniques that help people get marginal percentage improvements out of what they do. It's direct on the bottom line. On the right-hand side, a lot of the infrastructure owners and cities and authorities are trying to make decisions, and there's a big industry around how that's done. And those groups don't talk to each other, or find it very hard to have consistent information, find it very hard to share the impacts of what a new service might do in different parts of London or Birmingham or anywhere around the world. And our technology sits in the middle. It allows us to facilitate that collaborative development, to be able to build and deploy profitable, useful systems in cities that deliver benefit for the society. We've been supported through some of the innovation programs in the UK. So this is the Connected and Autonomous Vehicle, Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles Intelligent Mobility Fund, where we've been working with technology from the computer gaming sector through partners with Improbable, and established transport industry techniques through Cubic, to develop the tools and techniques that you need to run fleets of efficient mobility services using autonomous vehicles. We've gone on from that to work with partners, Addison Lee, Ford, and others, to test specific applications of this in London for autonomous rideshare. So here you've got an example of an A-B comparison of a conventional service and then an autonomous rideshare service. And it allows us to test different KPIs, understand performance indicators, and understand what will work, what won't, what works well with the city, what doesn't, and smooth that route to market for some of these innovations. We have customers in different tiers, so we work closely with infrastructure providers and authorities. We're working with pilots with the fleets through the owners and the operators, and then building components that fit into these mobility operating systems and city platforms. Click, click. In terms of milestones, we've been going for 2 years. We've been supported a lot through innovation programs. We're working through paid pilots with a series of end customers at the moment to refine our offerings and test their integration with other systems. And we've got a pretty exciting year or few ahead of us where we're looking to roll that out into commercial deployment. We're here looking for collaborators in that, looking for partners to test our products and also to work with us to take that forward and expand our business and theirs. We built a great team, very proud of our team. And looking forward to working with you and hearing more about how we can take things forward. Okay. and to being grilled by the panel. That one. I like those people.
The value chain for autonomous vehicles clearly is in establishment and still shaping up, with a number of competitors from different spheres all introducing themselves, and there's a new technology stack that's being created around autonomous vehicles. Help us understand where you see yourself sitting in that tech stack and exactly your role within that tech stack and the deployment, not just of the technology but then of the service as well.
That's a great question, and it's evolving, I think, is the honest answer. We're working with the city and the infrastructure providers primarily, but also with the service providers, where they see us supporting the operational decision making, but also the deployment rollout of different services in different geographies. So our core asset is understanding the place and the people and how that mobility system behaves, and then how changing that by introducing something new affects it. The value for us is can be translated into per trip, per mile operational support. It can also work as a value on a per question or per query setup. So we've built some API interfaces to be able to run that with some of the partners. In terms of where we sit in the stack overall, it depends on which terms you use for different layers of the stack. It's integrating the data, adding value to it, and then also and then ingesting it into the different decision-making systems that people are using. If that answers your question, yeah.
I mean, building on that from my point of view, I'm sort of relatively clear commercially sort of what you're aiming at, but it would be good to go through your revenue model for the different types of clients that you sort of mentioned up there in the slides.
Yeah, so the revenue model is around access packages. So it's simulation as a service, effectively. So it's a cloud-hosted support infrastructure. We do both enterprise versions, which are deployed for a specific set of clients and data, but we also have a more open access portal. So there are different tiers of subscription, from a basic user tier through to a model builder and developer tier through to an enterprise bespoke solution. At the moment, the programs are primarily enterprise specific, but they're allowing us to build out the feature set for that wider rollout.
Do you think it's ever going to develop to be much more off the shelf? It sounds like it's a very specific use case at the moment, which presumably means your sales cycle is very long and development time means it's a long time to value for your company.
It's a good point. So one of the things we've been investing in is automation technologies. So being able we can run a simulation of anywhere in the world now. So somebody choose a place and we can go and build one. And the first version isn't perfect, but it iterates quite quickly to get something that's a lot better. So we've been prioritizing building technologies that can deploy anywhere and can deploy with quite a range of different partners engaged. So we've done a lot of dollar work on interfacing in terms of how we work, how we play nicely. A lot of the organizations we mentioned on there, actually a lot of the business is driven by spreadsheets, which are notoriously non-standard and locked up in somebody's head, or version control's awful. So quite a bit of what we do is trying to interface bits of that into a more coherent structure. And it's improving. I mean, data systems are getting better, compute is vastly better. So over the lifetime of this, yeah, it's going in the right direction.
So it looks like a really cool technology, and obviously in this space there's a lot of really complicated data from a lot of complicated data sources, and it's cool that you're taking all of that data, ingesting it, and creating these simulations. One of the really weak elements in that whole process is the human at the end of it, and deciding actually how to make an effective decision based on those simulations. Can you tell us a bit about what sort of predictions you can make and what kind of recommendations you can make to the actual people managing those decisions, so we can have a better system? Yeah, sure. It's a great question, and that depends. That's often use case specific, because and it's often where we're working with the interfaces and the systems that the users are used to
working with. We work a lot with the highways authorities, and actually highway control centres, traffic engineers have a whole series of patterns about how they understand data and interface to it. So a lot of the pilot programs are about understanding where best to insert the insights and how you give somebody something actionable at the right time. The visualization you saw there is an export to Tableau, so it's using business intelligence tools, which for some of the strategic decisions are quite useful. We have a lot of collaborators who are engaged in app development or in that user-centric side of it. So there's a lot to be done there to get it really right, but we're focusing on getting the core decision-making process, data simulation management done well, because then it translates into many of those verticals. Okay.
Okay, this is going to sound like a bit of a Pat question again. What is your business going to look like in 18 months? You know, the size of the team, the revenues.
It's going to be enormous.
Yeah,
and take over the world.
So
we've named the company Immense, for goodness sake.
Okay.
It's going to have to be quite big.
What does it look like?
So it's a great question. So over the next 12 months, we're expecting to, if everything goes well, double, and then probably look at. We will know a lot more as to whether we need to grow past about 40 or 50 over the next 6 to 12 months. But it's of that sort of order of magnitude, where the team today is 15 FTE, so we'll be looking at being about double that inside 12, and possibly stepping up to 50 or 60 in year 3.
Okay, and that team, what sort of sales does that produce?
Support.
Yeah.
Enormous amounts of money, extremely profitable. There's that's some of the stuff we're working through at the moment in these pilots. So I can give you the number from the business plan, but everybody knows business plans keep changing.
Okay.
So
great. Thank you very much. Super presentation. Well done. Thanks. Okay. I'll take that. So up next we have passenger. There you go. Thanks.
Ooh, great slide to start with. Hi everyone, my name's Tom Quay. I run a transport technology business called Passenger. We've been running for about 2 years now. We came out of a digital agency down in Bournemouth. We were doing a lot of custom application development for transport operating companies, predominantly in UK bus. We were coming across the same issues in those custom application developments, and logically decided that would become, or should become, a product in its own right. So Passenger was born. Over the last year or so, we've scaled the transport data management platform that we have across to 10 operating companies in the bus world across the UK. December last year, we had 2. And really what we've started to look at now in terms of what we're doing with the data management is how we enable our customers, so our operating companies, to really get ready for this future of mobility as a service. Now, you look at London and you look at the open data provision there as an app developer in London. It's huge. It's a 10-year story. You look anywhere else in the country and there is no such infrastructure on which to build these applications. So we were mobile app developers. We ended up building a transport data management tool in order to make the data that we were bringing out to the front end mobile apps actually really high quality, and obviously that's where you get the customer experience based on that high quality data from the back end. So basically what we're doing is rolling out across the country and working with the schedulers in order to provide that high quality, accurate data, feeding it out to mobile apps, combining mobile ticketing and journey planning information into the front end, but also looking at how we serve that data to systems such as Lola Tech in terms of voice interaction. We're not talking about the shiny technology on the front end, we're talking predominantly about the management of that data and making it really straightforward for the operating companies to manage that data set at source. So rather than tapping into open data sets, things like the Travelline National Data Set, where there are delays in that kind of data coming out. We're working directly with the operating companies. So we're working in Bournemouth with our ATP Dev. We're working in Transport for the North region with Transdev, so we've just rolled out for those guys. And we are rolling out in Cardiff, so we've got half a deployment there with the information provision. We'll be mobile ticketing that side just after Christmas. We have a deployment in East Yorkshire. We have a deployment in Blackpool as of April this year. So we're going into Scotland. And I think really what we're sort of trying to do with our kind of design agency background, our user experience background, is make sure that that front-end provision really tests the quality of the data from the back end and make sure that that provision, perhaps seemingly a little dull, but that provision allows the operating companies to be ready for whatever this mobility as a service future looks like. So we may end up removing all of the front-end clients that we're using to test that data quality right now, but end up serving up as APIs in a really consistent structure across the UK to various mobility as a service aggregators, providers, whatever you might call them. Because there will be more than Mass Global, there will be plenty more players in the market, give it a few years. So that's us.
Lovely, thanks.
Could you just give us an idea of the potential scale of this? You said you were talking to sort of 10 of the bus operators. So is this, how addressable is this to all of the bus operators in the UK? How valuable could it be to each bus operator? Just where could this get in sort of 3, 4, 5 years' time?
Sure. We are using standard, sort of industry standard data feeds, so the RTI, so the real time. We're combining that with the standard industry standard in scheduling, so the trans exchange import. So basically every standard we sort of tap into. So we can go into an operating company and we can roll them out within about 8 weeks. So what we've got here is sort of some of the major independents, starting where we're based down in Bournemouth. We've gradually built up the size of the fleets. So Transdev is about 350 fleet operator, and actually was our first sort of replacement of the incumbent, so the existing kind of mobile ticketing app provider. So that was our kind of first example of how we could migrate. And yeah, absolutely. The opportunity for us really is to show, is to work with a group, so one of the perhaps go ahead or first group, and just really sort of bring together some of the things that they found complex over the last few years in terms of the ticketing, the reliability of the data, and all of these things across all of their different operating regions.
How are you ensuring the quality and reliability of the data that you're providing? Because that's always one of the challenges, to be able to make sure, particularly where it's not delivered on a real-time basis, and it's to schedule. So how are you managing that?
What we're really starting to look at is how the mobile apps actually can feed back some of the sort of the location data to augment the data that's being provided to us. So rather than simply, where we've come from is we've aggregated data sources that we've been given. What we're starting to do is use the mobile devices, the actual location tracking within the device, to say, well, actually, we've got lots of people on a vehicle. We've got an RTI feed, and actually the RTI feed or the vehicle is reporting somewhere way off where it should be. We can actually sort of smooth that out by looking at the number of people who have the mobile app installed on the vehicle and actually say, well, actually our real time is better than the real time we're being given. So we're sort of using that data to start to augment what we've got and potentially even replace some of the systems and the feeds that we have traditionally used.
Sure. One of the problems with, obviously, mass transit is typically the way that it's scheduled. If you take London, for example, in any major city, is it's done on a contract based on a number of services that they deliver, irrespective of how many people are actually on that bus, or on that transit. It could be empty, for example. How are you going to be able to use this potentially to also drive not just vehicle utilisation, but seat utilisation, that therefore drives greater efficiency and adoption of the transit in a local city? Yeah,
absolutely. You're talking about a deregulated market in London. I mean, what we're predominantly dealing with is regulated markets, everything else outside of London and Manchester, basically. In terms of being able to drive utilisation, that's a really good question. I think where you've got a high-quality front end, so a mobile app or a voice interactive system, you can really start to sort of proactively suggest that this is where the vehicle is not being utilised to the max. In the morning, perhaps in the peak rush, it is being utilised. So incentivization through ticketing and pricing, you can actually sort of perhaps to shift the demand curve to other times of day for particular types of user that perhaps don't actually need to travel in that. I mean, TfL do a great job with the posters. They say this station is busy at this time of day. That kind of information is really useful. if we can serve that kind of thing up to users in the mobile apps or via voice, then actually that's a really smart way to do it.
For me, that's the kind of the path then towards driving crowdsourced data that will also then drive better reliability of the data you provide.
Absolutely.
Which then
So it's
supports
quite
more people
cyclical.
onboarding
Yeah.
the platform.
Yeah.
It becomes a virtuous circle, especially if you introduce a yield management type approach where then you can vary ticket prices based on utilization and
Absolutely.
seats.
So you're talking
And
surge pricing, but on buses.
effectively, yeah. And I think that's a significant opportunity to drive the commercial benefit back to the operator.
Yeah.
That then obviously also becomes your big win to them in order to grow it.
Absolutely, and if you
acquire
look
new
at one of the biggest barriers to people using a bus, it's not that glamorous to use a bus. One of the biggest barriers is people don't know what the fare is going to be, and they just stop thinking about it and they go and take their car. If you could remove the actual choice of a ticket and track where they've been, and perhaps even Oyster retro bill them, Oyster style, then all of a sudden you've made it very, very easy for someone with kids to potentially take a buggy and get on that bus. So, a lot of scope.
A lot of the things you're talking about are really cool future uses of this. Can you help me understand, I guess, what's the size of the benefit that the bus companies are getting with this additional data now? Like, is this marginal improvement or is this significant operational improvement for them?
It's difficult to know where to start in terms of what the benefits are. I think in terms of brand, there was a really good discussion earlier around the value of the brand within the mobility as a service model. I agree. I think brand is going to be huge. I think a reliable touch point that's sort of, for the commute into work, out of work, you've got this interface with the operating company. You are building that relationship. So I think there's a big advantage there. You've got the opportunity to speed up the boarding by removing the payment from the actual vehicle. All of these.
I guess what I'm so you're clearly using this with a number of buses. Can you give us some data?
Sure.
How much have you improved usability, the speed of boarding,
It's hard to
what's the
attribute
improvement?
improvements directly to this, but I mean, we're talking across about 1,000 vehicles. We're seeing, anecdotally coming through on the feedback that people are much faster on their boarding, and so.
Aren't you collecting that data? Why is that anecdotal?
In terms of how fast people are boarding?
Well, yeah. I guess. I mean, if you're offering them, do they not then have a way of collecting data over the success of the implementation of this?
There is no reliable way to collect a boarding time, if you like. So it's ultimately it's going to come down to the vehicles running to time. So actually, the bus is not being late for people. So and there are so many factors involved in that it's very, very difficult to say this product is realizing this result. But
super presentation, really clear, really concise, exciting opportunity.
Great.
Thank you very much. Now, as I understand it, we have Vivacity Labs.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Peter Milden, Chief Operating Officer and one of the co-founders of Vivacity Labs. I'm here to talk to you this evening about our smart cities solution. So at Vivacity, I guess we believe there are two aspects to a transport-focused smart city. And the first one of those is widespread real-time hyperlocal data about exactly how that transport system is being used. And once you've gathered that, you can start to do clever things with it, i.e. using machine learning to predict how busy that transport system might be in the near-term future and start using that to control it. So to try and solve that first one of the problems, Vivacity have developed a smart traffic camera. So this is a camera and processor in a box. It can look at a road space and give data in real time about how that road space is being used. The entire concept of this sensor has been designed to remove cost from the system. So it can be installed onto existing street furniture, and by doing the processing inside the box, we remove the data transmission costs that might be associated with a CCTV feed. So what's actually going on inside the box? Well, as I say, we've got a field of view of the road, and we're able to then detect where pedestrians, cars, cyclists, motorbikes, vans, trucks, taxis are within that space, track them, produce data on how they're interacting and how busy that space might be at any one time. Once you've got all of that data, you get some immediate benefits. So you no longer ever need to do any manual traffic counting. Your existing CCTV control rooms no longer need to be manned because you've effectively got an AI watching all of your CCTV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, producing decisions on what to do when it sees things going slightly wrong. In terms of balancing your network, we're able to reroute people based on the traffic that they will experience when they get there, rather than the journey time of a vehicle that might be 10, 15 minutes down the road ahead of you. And we're also working to interface this data into traffic signals to allow you to get that aspect of control back in on top of what's happening. So our biggest project at the moment we call Viva MK, and it's focusing on Milton Keynes. We have finished installing 430 traffic sensors around the city, so that's covering every single major junction within the city. So that's 1,300 lanes of traffic being monitored in real time. It's the equivalent of digging up 1,300 lanes worth of road to put the incumbent induction loops in. And that is currently producing 5 million data points per day about every time a traffic movement goes across a junction within the city. And that has allowed us to reach a 89% accuracy 20 minutes into the future about how many cars are going past every single junction within the city. We're feeding that data into a data portal that is being used, or will be being used, by the transport controllers within the council. So that's giving a live view and a predictive view of how the city is functioning as a whole, and then also allowing you to delve down into the detail of a particular carriageway, giving you historic, live and predictive data about how that is functioning at any one time. We're also installing car parking sensors in the city, so our car parking sensors will be covering 12,000 parking spaces, giving live occupancy data about each of those spaces. And to try and demonstrate the value of this data, we've worked with a third party to produce an app that will then direct people to the nearest free space to the destination that they're aiming for. We're not just working in Milton Keynes. On the slide here, I've shown some of our other clients where we've got sort of projects in the sort of tens to hundreds of sensors rather than thousands. We also recently did a press release on our ambitions in the smart traffic light space that made it onto the front page of the Telegraph, amongst other publications. And I guess the final question is why we're here today and what's happening next. Well, we're looking at now expanding what we have proven that does work in Milton Keynes to other cities. So if you're a local authority and you want to hear a little bit more about our service, please come and talk to me. And to potential investors in the room, we will be looking at raising a round around about next summer to allow us to expand rapidly beyond this first city. Thank you very much for your time, and yeah, any questions would be very welcome.
Clearly you rely significantly on the hardware that you install. You know, clearly it's also, as you've already indicated, a huge number of sensors that have to be deployed in a single geographical area. How are you going to manage both the cost, the maintenance, and the obsolescence of the technology that goes into the sensor? Because that's always one of the most significant things that you have within this type of play.
So I guess there's a twofold answer to that one. In terms of the hardware, we're putting that hardware in because it's an enabler to allow us to do more things. If there are other sources of that data, there's nothing stopping us jumping straight to the second one. But we decided that we needed to put that hardware in to enable that to happen. So in terms of managing the cost, as I mentioned earlier, everything about the architecture has been designed to get the cost down. So the scale of the traffic side of the deployment in Milton Keynes was achieved for less than £1 million in terms of the install cost. The operating costs are sort of order of a quarter of that. In terms of the obsolescence side of things, every single sensor is effectively a reconfigurable device. So we have a fixed amount of processing power within the box, but we can update our software over the air. And then if we ever need to replace the hardware within it, it's a modular design on the inside, so we can keep most of the components and update them if we need to for, let's say, processing power becomes another order of magnitude faster, and we want to gather even more data about how that space is being used, potentially looking at the quality of the road surface, whether your trees need trimming back, that sort of thing. But from the amount of processor we've already got in the box, we can gather the data that we need to do currently.
We've met before, I believe, so good job with the Milton Keynes project. It was before the Milton Keynes project we met. I don't recall from the last time we met, what's the scope of the data that you can collect? I mean, you mentioned behavior. Can you determine the speed of vehicles? Can you determine the make of vehicles? Can you, like, how much data can you gather? Are we just identifying car, bus, truck, people?
So from the speed point of view, it probably wouldn't be good enough for enforcement, but you can get a good output in terms of what the flow rate of speed is and what speed. So we're currently looking at a project to try and protect cyclists on the road. So we're looking at the path that cyclists are taking, how fast they're being overtaken, how close they're being overtaken, and what impact that has on their decisions on how they decide to go through that road space. So it's not just who is using the road, but it's how they are using it. In essence, the anonymous data that we're able to gather out of that system is each road user, be that a pedestrian or a vehicle, and their path in a temporal nature through that field of view. We don't currently extract the brand of vehicle, but that is something that is on our sort of pipeline of things to develop and is feasible within the technology. Again, that's an over-the-air update that we could do within our existing technology.
And sort of a follow-up to that, with all that data that you're able to gather, to what extent are you leaving it to the council, the municipality to make decisions, or are you able to sort of recommend the optimal routes for lorries to drive through based on traffic patterns, et cetera, in order to optimize the city?
So we've been working very closely with Milton Keynes Council to try and work out what the commercial model would be for benefit to them as the council, but as part of trying to reduce the cost to them as a cash-strapped council, we're also exploring ways of monetizing the data across all sectors within the city. So an example, yes, in terms of a logistics company, if you can help route their vehicles through a city to their depot more efficiently, quicker, at what times of day, you can cut their costs. There is a value to the data there as well, and that's something that we are actively exploring and trying to gather all of the different use cases rather than just rely on the local government to foot the bill.
When you, what I'm interested to know about is when you go to the local council, how do you sell this? What is the, if there's one or two key benefits or value add from this, what would those be? Why do they want to buy it?
So there are two teams within the council that would be interested in the data. So there'll be the transport planning side of the council, who will currently be spending more money than you would expect manually gathering data about how their road space is being used, partly to feed into simulations, partly to help make justifications for investments of potentially multiple hundreds of millions of pounds into road infrastructure and that sort of thing. So if they can de-risk those planning decisions, there's a huge amount of value that can be unlocked. Then on the highways maintenance and control side of life, they've got two KPIs. One KPI would be to get the throughput of vehicles on their road better. It's where the smart control side of things comes in. If you can identify an incident quicker, they can get out and deal with it more quickly, and then that reduces the congestion that builds up from it. But also from a practical point of view of the operations of doing roadworks, currently they will avoid doing roadworks during the morning and evening peak, but they'll still be paying their staff to do a 10-hour shift that day. If you can highlight that on a particular road it actually only experiences the morning peak or the evening peak, you can make huge operational savings to their manpower, and that's bottom line revenue that's being saved at that point.
Okay, now I've asked you about local authorities. Now the same questions for investors. How are you going to help them generate a fantastic return for their investment?
So that one's hopefully quite an easy one to answer in terms of, again, by focusing on local councils, they tend not to be able to fund CapEx budgets and would be looking for potentially to buy the data through a data subscription model. So if we can link up with investors to help us fund deployment of the sensors to get the data, the more data that you gather, the more value there is in that data. The richer the data is, the more value there is in the data. So the more data that we can gather, the more value we can then sell out back both to the local councils and to the wider private sector, which then makes a really compelling business case for the investors as well.
What's the approximate cost of a box range?
It's order of £2,000 to £3,000 over a 2-year sort of life, so you're including all of the operational side of things as well as the upfront cost of the box. To put that into some perspective, that's about half what it would cost you to put a radar unit out, or it's a third of the cost of putting an induction loop in the ground.
Lovely. Thank you so much. So now we'll welcome to the stage Better Points. Thank you very much. Now, there's your microphone. Can you grab that? Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I was in a position like this last night, presenting just before the drinks were being served, so I'll try and get through this quickly. Better Points, I'm Chris Bristow. I'm the COO of Better Points. Better Points is a evidence-based behavior change system. So, why are we talking at this event around smart mobility? If you look at all the innovations that are taking place, at the heart of everything you want to achieve is getting the actual users of the infrastructure to start to change their behavior and start to adopt new ways of moving around. Our customers are typically in the public sector, local authorities. We've got customers in the UK and in Europe. And we're targeted in the transport space to get people to get out of cars and to start using sustainable transport, whether that's active travel through walking and cycling or using buses, trains, trams. We're also, as a behavior change platform, we're also in the health market, so we're very much straddling the two, and between the two areas there is a common Venn area, if you like, of the health outcomes. So our platform is fairly mature. Our first commercial product was out in 2013. We're working with Reading buses to get residents of the area to adopt their smart card, and from that we developed the system as you see it now. We've got a web portal which includes most of our intelligence, is where we configure the programs to have localized programs to run in each area. The mobile app is our sort of common user interface for everyone, and we have an API so that we can do third-party integration, either other products including our functionality in theirs, or we can get data feeds from people and start to apply behavior change around that. How we would typically set it up, we have a program management tool where we would configure, either our partners or us, configure the sort of activities you want to record. We're an evidence-based system, so we record all the activities of how people move around a city or an area. We define how you may want to reward those activities, so we use incentivization sort of to drive the engagement within an area and to reward people for actually adopting those new behaviors. And that engagement drives the evidence we get. So we've just finished a project in Bologna. It was a 6-month project. We recorded about 1 million journeys during those 6 months, and they've just re-upped for next year. We're going to run the same projects next year. We use a lot of gamification, as well as the incentivization to keep the engagement going over longer term projects. And really we work with a lot of the major players, either it's the local authorities and their public sector initiatives, or we can work with transport operators as well. When we speak to users, we've got 2 clients. We've got the people who pay us the money, and we've got the people who actually use the app. We don't tell them they've got to change their behavior. We tell them they've just got to do good things, fun things, and create a nice experience for them. So it's a very simple message. Download the app, record your journeys, earn better points, and then better points is a digital currency as well. And then you can reward yourself with those better points, and we have a whole catalogue of high street rewards. We work with local merchants as well, so we can sort of talk to the circular economy within areas, or you can donate to charity. And the ultimate goal for us, as I was on the previous slide, where we use behavioural science and we're using machine learning, over time you really want to drive the mixture of the messaging, the rewards of what you want people to do. It needs to be sort of end-to-one. So some people will respond to giving to charity, some people will respond to getting an Amazon voucher, some people want to be top of a leaderboard in a corporate environment. So different ways to target different groups. So that's it. Overall, we are a behaviour change program. We're in those 2 areas. We're quite experienced in the sustainable transport area. We have projects running around the country, and as I said, in Europe. We're working on some projects with some European partners on data visualization, which has really come out strongly here. So taking all the data we capture of how people move around a city, that's being used by transport and city planners. And we're talking to air quality monitoring companies so that we can apply that data level to people's journeys and start to advise them of when they're travelling in areas of poor quality, and start to change their behaviours around, even as a motorist, they, obviously that affects them quite keenly. And if we can get to motorists, we can then start to change their behaviour, perhaps to not use the car and to use other forms of transport. Thank you.
How successful has this actually been? Can you give us some data, and specifically with motorists? We're inherently selfish individuals, and when you own a car, you tend to use it, and as opposed to adopt any other mode of transport. So how successful has it been? Can you give us some data?
Yeah, I would say if we look at the most recent project in Bologna, where we've got a really good data set, qualitatively, the feedback has been 80% of the people engaged. We had about 22,000 people registered, about 15,000 active participants. 80% said the program got them to actually use the car less and to take other forms of transport. So for them, it was that successful. They won an award for it, and that's why they've re-upped for next year to run the project again. So to answer your question in terms of the data, how the data supports that, sometimes it's difficult to get the local authorities to really engage with the motorists, even though that's really the best way. They're the people you want to change the behaviour, and they don't always get enough time to plan those projects effectively. But we can do a digital, baseline of people, see how they move around, and then measure that. We still have a mix of a baseline survey to start with, and then we do the data of how people move around, use that as a measure against what people tell us, and then reflect on that afterwards. So we do our own analysis of the data, as well as a post-campaign survey as well.
The first behavior, presumably, you need to change is to get them to download the app. And in a world where the data suggests there's quite a lot of app fatigue and people aren't doing that,
yep.
How much success are you having? How long does it take you to implement one of these programs?
Well, sometimes we're given a month to put one into place. You've hit on probably the biggest challenge for all of us in this space is the engagement aspect. How do you suddenly get a large number? In Bologna, they were very successful. I think there are national characteristics. In Europe, they're a little bit more receptive than they are in Britain. We've had success in Britain. We're now focusing on developing more of our corporate business so that we have large employers to sort of go through and actually get a base of business. One of our other, in terms of a sustainable business model for us, because we do health as well as transports, we've been running projects in Reading for 4 years, we've been running projects in Birmingham for over 3 years. We can actually call on an existing base of users, and different projects come up. They understand what Better Points is about, so we've over that initial sort of engagement curve. And because there's incentivization involved in it, there's a strong hook to keep people or bring back people back in, even if they've dropped off for a while.
Okay. Can I ask a second question? I guess it's a two-part question. How long does data suggest anyway it takes to impose a different change or to affect different change in behavior? And how sticky is that change in that behavior? As soon as you turn off the incentive, does it go back? Or?
Yeah, we test all of those things. So we test what are the bumps when you start to change the reward mix, and that's why we're introducing machine learning to really keep that more aligned to each individual, because there's no point doing sort of large-scale changes across a program, because it will not reflect perhaps all the individual preferences of each person. We're doing a longitudinal study at the moment with some of our longer-term clients to see how many people that were in the original programs are still using it now. That's so far the early results have been quite positive. There is obviously there is the app churn element, and we're doing some things now to sort of test whether we can extend that or extend. So, for example, I think the numbers are 20% after 3 months is what you're left with. We tend to have more than that in our programs. I'm just referring to the Bologna one because we're doing a lot of work on that for next year at the moment. We're looking to achieve 50% at the end of 6 months. is our goal for that. And based on the sort of feedback we've had from the users and new ways of sort of addressing that market, we think that's possible.
So just picking up on the machine learning point that you mentioned, we were joking earlier that we're seeing every single company we see has machine learning or AI in some element of it.
A T-shirt, it's got to have it, yeah.
So I just wondered how core that was to the overall proposition, or is that something you've just recently bolted on?
It's essential. So for it to scale up, and for it to be effective, you've got to have a way to address each individual with a mix that makes sense. So what we've learned, the benefit of us being around long enough, we made all the mistakes of sort of blanket rewarding everybody for doing the things they were already doing, or somebody would have done it for less. But how do you actually factor that into a program? So you've really got it. We've built already the testing models, data sets that we're using. We've got somebody. The person who's lead on that is actually doing the PhD at UCL at the moment, specifically on the application of machine learning to incentivization and behavior change. So it's kind of embedded in everything we do, and we think for us to sort of do the large-scale interventions, which is really what people want to do, as much as there are small-scale ones, but we're getting more and more people, large cities, looking at a requirement for hundreds of thousands of people. For that to be effective, it's got to have some form of ML in it.
And to that point, I was not necessarily to your business model, but are you willing, going to open source some of your data for, say, behavioral economics research to figure out?
Sure. I mean, our policy is we don't commercialize the data. So the data, part of we're software as a service. The data goes back to our partners who are in the public sector, and we're happy to share data as well to actually, to see if we can improve whatever it may be. We're involved in whether it's health or transport, but absolutely.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. Okay. Now, before everyone runs away and has a drink, I was so eager to get the guys on stage to do their presentations. I forgot to let these investors do some introduce themselves. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves now. At the very end.
Like us, the last one before.
Yeah. Now they have to sit through you.
Yeah. Should we go through very, very quickly? Because we're last people before drinks. My name's Phil. I work for a venture and growth capital fund called Beringea, based in the UK and in the US. We got about $675 million under management. We tend to invest between about £2 million to £10 million in Series A to Series B rounds, and that's across all sectors. We primarily focus on digital media, retail and consumer, and business software and services.
My name's Chris. I'm a partner at 01 Ventures. We're an early stage deep tech fund. We invest between £1 and £3 million, and we invest across Europe.
And Jonathan, I work for RocketSpace. It's a San Francisco-based startup that tries to curate the ecosystem between corporates, startups, investors to deliver scale, resources, and obviously capital as well. But 20 years in the auto industry, previously worked at Jaguar Land Rover and set up In Motion Ventures, and I also am an advisor to HireCar, to Humanizing Autonomy, AV startup that looks at vehicle-to-human interaction, and also to Aeromobile, a flying car company, which is my other little passion. So.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks for your contribution tonight, guys. Appreciate you coming. Appreciate your time.